What's up guys, welcome to another video. I'm going to teach you about Git and GitHub and how to configure them, set them up, and use their basic commands. You might notice something a little cool, a little bit different here. We're actually at practicalwebdev.com, so I did launch a website, guys. It'll be connected to my YouTube channel. I just wanted to make you guys aware. And the reason I did this is for some tutorials that I do in the future that are kind of like this one, Git and GitHub. They're a little more technical, and they're not just like coding and building something. I want to make some extra resources for you guys in case you want to go visit an article like this right here. So this is going to be like the video that we're doing. This article and the video are going to be connected. For stuff like this, I think I'm going to make more articles to go with the videos that you can follow along and read. Because sometimes, like when I was learning how to code, I learned certain stuff better by reading than I did by watching videos, funny enough. So some of you guys are kind of like that. Everything that I'm going to go through in this tutorial and the video today, I'm going to have lots of screenshots, pictures. I have a full, basically, article write-up in pretty much the same order that I'm going to teach it to you guys on what to do with commands in the terminal, setting up Git and GitHub, what they are, everything like that. So I'm also going to start an email list. If you'd like to join it, you can go to the website and join it, or I'll also have that link in the description. And I'm not going to spam you guys or anything like that. It's just if you want to join, probably once a month I'll send an email out about the content that I've put up, or maybe some other content that won't go out. Otherwise, it'll just be for the newsletter. So if you're interested in that, go ahead and sign up as well, okay? But we're going to get started here. So again, this is a guide for Git and GitHub. So Git and GitHub, they're basically used to save your files and upload them and work on projects with other developers and revert back to old versions. It's basically just like making a backup of your code, okay? So Git, I'll explain the differences in them, but the main thing to remember is Git is just on your local computer, and GitHub is a website that stores your code in a cloud that can be viewed by anybody in the world as long as they can find your GitHub profile or where the project is stored. And a lot of people, if you make your repositories and your code public, they can download them and use them, or they can even request to work on and add to your project. So that's the easiest way to explain it. We'll get into more detailed explanations now, actually, because I do have some slides prepared. So this is just my little slide on Git. So I just wanted to go over each one, Git and GitHub, a little bit more in depth to give you a better understanding. So Git is free source control management software, and you might hear some people refer to it as an SCM. Again, that's just short for source control management, okay? And it works on all major operating systems. So whether you have a Windows computer, a Mac like I'm using right now, or a Linux system, it works for all systems. And so even though I'm on a Mac, if you're on Windows, you're going to actually be able to follow right along with me, because all of the commands that are in the terminal that I'm going to make are pretty much universally accepted in like every command line now. And we'll get more into that later. And that wasn't always the case even not that long ago. Not too long ago, it was way more beneficial to either run Linux or have a Mac if you're a web developer, use an Apple computer, because right out of the box, you basically get all of the web developer tools that you'll need to like launch web applications and stuff like that. And with Windows, it was more complicated. You had to download other software to get that done, and it was doable, but it was a pain in the butt. So if you're on Windows now, you don't got to worry about that, and it's good that you missed out on all that nonsense. Because, yeah. Like I said earlier, you can manage files locally. So Git allows you to manage files locally on your machine, meaning all of the changes will be saved to your hard drive. So all of your code and different versions of your websites, they're going to be just on your hard drive, okay? So if you're not on that local computer, you're not going to really be able to access them. And then, as I mentioned, Git uses the terminal to take commands in. So if you've never used your terminal or your command line, you're going to learn how to do that today. And it's a little intimidating at first, but it's not that bad once you get used to it. And you really only have to know a few basics. And like with anything else with web development, whatever command you need to do something, you can just easily Google and find the answer. After you go through this tutorial today, and you kind of get your feet wet with it, it'll be super simple. So don't worry about that, but it'll be kind of maybe a fun new experience for you if you've never used the terminal. All right, so I know I wanted to get a little bit more in depth on GitHub that we learned about Git. So GitHub is free with paid options. If you want more advanced features like private repositories or other stuff that you would use if you worked for a larger company, you can pay to have those features unlocked. So GitHub is basically, it's just like a website where you can host your code and have your own little profile. Kind of like a social media network, but just for like code files, if that makes sense. It's been around for a long time. It's now owned by Microsoft, so they took it over a few years back. But yeah, like I said, you can pretty much just use the free version. That's all I've ever used, and have been developing for years now. So again, the cool thing about GitHub is it allows you to push your local Git files to the cloud on GitHub so that they can be accessed anywhere in the world and be viewed by other developers. And once you get your code from Git to GitHub, if you would like, you can use the GUI interface, and that just means like a point-and-click interface. So instead of having to enter a bunch of commands in the terminal, you can actually edit files and add them just by pointing and clicking and using like the normal workflow that you would use for adding files to like any other website. Just, GUI interface, not terminal. So yeah, that's Git and GitHub explained there in a little bit more depth. So hopefully you have a good understanding of what they are and what their differences are. All right, guys. So now that we know what Git and GitHub are, what we're going to need to do now is download Git. We need to get Git installed on your local machine so that you can start using it, okay? So to do that, you can just go to Google like I did, and you can type in git scm, and then the first one that comes up will be gitscm.com, and that's what you want to click. And then when you get to the home page, go ahead and click on Downloads. And then up here, you're going to select your operating system. So I'm on Mac, so if you're on Mac, you'll click this. It'll tell you to install Homebrew if you don't already have it. And this will require you to open up your terminal down here. So you open this terminal, and you can just copy and paste these commands in there. Leave out this little money sign. You don't want to include that. Just include this part, okay? That's if you have a Mac, and then this installs super fast. It's like less than a minute. You'll be up and running. If you have Windows, you'll go ahead and select Windows. Select if you have a 32-bit or 64-bit system, and then it'll go ahead and run like the normal installer for Windows in that application. It'll ask you to click through some stuff, read some terms and services, all that fun stuff. Another thing that it's going to do, it'll mention a program called Git Bash. And what Git Bash is it's like a terminal that now comes with all of the Git downloads. And if you're on Windows, you'll want to make that your default, or you don't have to, but I recommend that you make Git Bash your default terminal, because you'll be able to follow along with me and use all the same commands, and it'll look really similar to a Mac terminal, which, again, right out of the box works really great if you have a Mac. But thankfully now, Windows users, you guys have Git Bash, so it's pretty much the same thing. So yeah, go ahead and check the box. It should be near the end of the installation. It'll say, do you want to use Git Bash as your default terminal or something like that? And you'll want to say yes, and then you'll want to open all of your files going forward and when you're doing this tutorial with Git Bash, okay? So, and just to show you what it is, look out for this logo here. This is just, again, I'm pulling this up from the article I wrote. This is Git Bash, and this is the logo for it. So if you see this is what you want to use if you're on Windows, guys, okay? So if you're on Apple like me, we're going to be using this terminal. This is our terminal icon, and I have mine right down here, okay? So go ahead and pause the video and download Git to your machine, and then we'll come back here and we'll get started. All right, guys, so hopefully you got Git installed on your machine without any issues. What we're going to do now is we're going to open up, in my case, I'm going to open up my Mac terminal. And then again, if you're on Windows, I suggest that you use Git Bash. Go ahead and open up Git Bash if you're on Windows. And what we're going to do now, you're just going to be in your terminal. I don't want any projects or anything opened in here, just the bare terminal. And what we're going to do is we're going to configure Git. So basically, just like any other application or thing that you download, you have to kind of set up your profile. And we're going to do that now. So we're going to set up our username, our email that we want to link to our Git profile, and then we're going to set up our main branch, and I'll explain what branches are here a little bit later. But first we're going to do our username and our email. Alright guys, so to set our username in Git, we're going to use the following command. Go ahead and follow along with me. We're going to do -- global space user dot name, and then we're going to make 2 quotes, and then I'll go back with my arrow key to go back and forth. Guys, you got to use your arrow key. You can't just click around with your mouse in here, okay? So go back with your arrow key so you're in between the quotation marks. And then in here, just put whatever username you want. So it could be your first name, last name. It can be like a business name. It can be any name that you want. You can be Fred Flintstone if you want it to be. Okay? So go ahead and enter whatever you want your username for Git to be, and then hit enter. I'm not going to hit enter on this because I already have my stuff configured, and I don't want to really mess it up. But you go ahead and hit enter. And then you're not going to get any kind of message or anything. It's just going to go down to a blank line, and that's fine. We're going to verify that our username and email address are correctly set up in a second, but first we got to type these commands in. So next we're going to set our email address for Git. So it's pretty similar to the one we just did for the command. We're going to say -- global user dot email, and then no quotes or anything like that, just a space, and then just put your email. So just an example, we can put johndoe@gmail.com. So put whatever your email is at whatever your provider is.com, hit enter. And now let's go ahead, we're going to type a couple commands in because we want to check and see that our username and our email were entered correctly and we have what we want. You're going to notice that with a lot of these commands in the terminal or in Git Bash, you're not going to get any feedback unless something's wrong. So usually if you hit enter and everything was done correctly, it'll just like nothing will really happen. You'll just go to the next line. But if something's wrong, it'll tell you some kind of error message. So there's not really like any positive feedback in here to tell you that you're doing the right thing, unfortunately. But that's just how the terminals are. But there's always commands to check settings that you've set. So let's check our username. And to do that, we're going to use the following command. We're going to say git config user.name and enter. And there's my username. So hopefully whatever username you entered should be here now. So mine is Practical Web Dev, of course, for this Git account. So there it is. So I know that my username is all set. And now we can pretty much do the same thing with our email. We can say git config user.email and hit enter. And here's my email, info.practicalwebdev@gmail.com. So that is correct. So I know I'm all set and I'm good to go there. All right, guys. So now we're going to set up our main branch. And before we do that, I'm just going to give you a little explanation of what exactly that means and like what branches are. So to do that, I'm just going to pull up the article from practicalwebdev.com where I go over everything that we have in the tutorial here. So we're at the branches part now, and we need to name our main branch, whatever we want it to be. So you can see in this picture here, this kind of represents like what branches are in Git. So it's kind of like branches of a tree. So you have your main, this green one in the middle is your main branch or your master branch. And if you had like a website that was running online currently, what the users would see would be whatever's on the master branch. That's what would actually be running on the server and showed to your client or whoever, the users on your website. That would be your main branch. And that's the branch that we have to set up and configure now and just give it like a default name. Okay. Now you can have other branches running simultaneously. You can see this blue one up here and these purple ones down here. And these are kind of like decoupled from the main branch, and we can pretend that like one developer in the purple is working on some kind of update for like the navigation bar. And then maybe this developer up here, the blue branch, maybe he's working on like a pop-up ad or something, or a pop-up email sign-up form that he wants to add to the website. But they're not going to be working on these changes and uploading everything to the main master branch, which is the website that everybody's seeing right now, because that would look crazy for the user. Like imagine if you were on like facebook.com and you were viewing your profile, but some Facebook engineers were changing changing the menu to where you can change your profile picture. So if you refreshed your page, you might be looking at like a completely different configuration for like your profile, basically, because other developers are currently working on it and saving, and as they go, their saves are getting pushed to the master branch. That would be not good for the user. It would really confuse you, and just really wouldn't be good for anybody. So basically, with other branches, you can make copies of the master branch and then branch off into your own branch, work on stuff, save it, and then so if you're working at like a larger company like Facebook or something, you would have to probably get your code and your stuff working right, and then it would probably go to like a code review with your supervisor or like a tech lead or something like that. Maybe they would review the changes, and only when they thought it was good enough to go live on the master branch of the real website would they give you the okay to merge your branch back to the master branch. So again, branches are just a way for you to basically add features to a website without messing up the live experience for users that are currently using it. That's a pretty good way to explain it, okay? So all we're doing right now, I know that might be kind of complicated, but we're just naming our master branch, this green one. And usually I just like to name it main, so we can just do that now. So let's go back to our terminal. So let's go back into our terminal and go ahead and set up our main branch. So we're going to do that by using the following command, -- global, whoops. And then we're going to say init.default branch main and hit enter. So in my case, I got an error message where it said ZSH command not found global. If you get that error, if this command isn't working for you for some reason, there's actually a different command that you can enter. So I want you to try git config -- global init dot default branch, so all together, main, and hit enter. And then you should be good to go. We didn't get an error message there, so that should work for you. I'm not really sure why that error happens, guys, but that is the workaround that I found works. So we'll just go with that. Like a lot of things with web development, you're not always going to know why something fixes something, but if it works, right? Just move on. So we have our Git profile good to go. We have our username, our email, and our default branch set and ready to go. So now what we can do is we can actually open up a project, and we can start doing staging files and then committing them, actually saving them to Git. So first you stage and then you commit. All right. So we're going to do that next. And then I'll also be showing you how to remove files, add files, and do all that fun stuff. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to go to a project folder that I have. And I'm actually just going to completely quit out of the terminal now. I recommend that you close your terminal altogether, because now the next time that we go into the terminal, we're not going to just go in it without a project. We're actually going to go into a file with it, okay? And I'll show you the easy way to do that. So I'm going to be using this following project called Lions website. So I'm just going to open it in Visual Studio Code. I think it's already good to go and opened here. Let's see. Yeah. So let me open it here, and we'll open the index. This is just a silly little website that I made back when I have a free HTML course that you can take here on YouTube. And at the end of the HTML course, we built a full multi-page website with just HTML. There's no CSS in it. But it was this website, and it's just basically a website about lions, because I love lions for some reason. So this is our home page. We even have like an embedded YouTube video. Pretty cool. It's got a home page. It's got a lot of stuff. We have an about page, a blog page that has actual blog posts that you can click into, and a contact page. Okay. So it's a full multi-page, just a little HTML website. Nothing special. It's kind of ugly, but it's a great example of a real-world, multi-page website that you'll be uploading to Git through your terminal. So if you want to use the same files that I'm using here, you can go ahead and go to my GitHub and pick it up. So I'll leave a link to the description if you want to go. You can go download this as a zip file, unzip it, and then do the same stuff as me that I'm doing with the same files that I have. So it's named GitHub Tutorial Starter. This is not at all necessary. If you already have a project that you want to upload to Git, you can go ahead and open that, or you can literally just create a new folder and put an index.html and, just put some pages in there, connect them. I recommend just having something that has multiple pages, okay? Doesn't really matter how you do it, but this is here if you'd like to use it. Alright guys, so before we go ahead and upload these files to Git through the terminal, there's one thing that I need to change, and you can see here I have the secrets.txt file, and it's just a text file, and when I open it, it says this is a file filled with super secret secrets, don't share with anyone. So I definitely don't want to upload this to Git and then later GitHub, because then everybody in the world would be able to view this file if they wanted to, and it's a secret file. So I kind of want Git to just ignore it, and I want them to push all my other files, but then just leave this one without any kind of saved data or anything like that. So sometimes you're going to have files in your projects that you want Git to ignore. For example, if you do like a real world example would be if you're doing a front end mentor tutorial, like I have several here that we've done on the channel. When you upload those to Git, those if you download like the master file from front end mentor, it'll come with files that are just like design files and style files that just have some like tell you like the colors of stuff and has pictures of the design. When you're actually done with the project, you probably wouldn't want to upload that to Git. So you could ignore the files too. That would be like a more real world example of what you'd want to ignore. Just any file that isn't actual code that's going to go in and that to run your project. You pretty much want to ignore and just leave that out of Git. Okay. So to do that, you can open up your project in your text editor and just create a new file and call it .git ignore and hit enter. And you can see now, like, my VS Code, it recognizes what this git ignore file is going to do, because the Git little logo is kind of near it now. So it kind of knows. It recognizes that file. It's like, oh, man, this guy wants to ignore some Git files. No problem. So, my text editor knows. If you have VS Code, yours should look similar to mine. What we're going to do now, because remember, I don't want this txt file to be sent to Git and GitHub. And I really don't want any txt files, any text files to be sent there, because none of those are going to be important to the project that I have. So what I'm going to do now is click into my git ignore file. And first thing I'm going to do is make a comment. And to make a comment in here, you do a shift 3, which will give you a hashtag. And then I'm just going to put what my code is about to do. So I'm going to say ignore all .txt files. And then below it, I'm going to do asterisk, which means if you know CSS, select all. And then I'm going to put .txt and save. And that little piece of code means select all text files and ignore them because they're in the git ignore folder. Okay? So now when we stage and commit our files, our secrets.txt file should not be added by Git. And we'll check that after we stage and add them. We'll make sure it's not there, okay? So that's how you ignore files in Git. Whenever you need to ignore any type of file, just Google. I'm not going to go over how to ignore every type of file. You can just literally just Google .gitignore and then type in whatever file. And I'll also have I'm going to have a ton of other resources in the description of the video. There's a lot of websites out there that just list out all of the most common Git commands that you might need for your terminal. And you can go ahead and click into those and bookmark them, in your web browser, which is what I recommend you do. But that's a little tutorial on how to ignore files, okay? So what we're going to do now, you don't want to be running your terminal and going into the project at the same time that it's in your text editor, like VS Code, else it's going to throw some errors. So I'm literally just going to go quit out of Visual Studio Code. But now I'm going to open up my project with my terminal. So to do that, and this is going to be kind of the same thing on Windows, just right-click on whatever folder you want. And then for Mac users, go ahead and just say New Terminal at Folder. And now we have this opened up in our terminal. Lion's website. It should say the name of your project up here in your terminal thing. And that's how you know you're actually in that project. That's the easiest way to do it. If you're in Windows, it's the same thing. You're pretty much going to right-click, and then it should say Open With. I think. Yeah, it should say open or open with, and then you want to open this up with git bash. If git bash isn't here immediately, on Windows it should say other options at the bottom, and then an arrow, and then more options will appear, and open it with git bash there. Okay, so just make sure you open this up in whatever terminal you're going to be using. So we're in Mac terminal, and I'm just going to make this bigger so we can see. And what we're going to do now is we're going to first tell this project file that we want Git to watch it. So we're going to initialize Git, and then we're going to add our files to the staging area. So let's go ahead and get that done. So the first thing I'm going to type here to initialize Git in this project is git init, and hit enter. And then I got this message here, and you should too. Initialized empty Git repository, and then it'll just give the file path. So basically, we're going to go Git is set up in this thing. You can check that by minimizing your terminal and clicking into the your project folder on Mac. So let's make this big. On Mac, you can see if Git is here by hitting Shift Command and then the period, typing period on your keyboard. And look, gitignore and Git files are here. So Git is here. So what I just did on Mac is that's how you see hidden files. It's Shift Command period. On Windows, you can see hidden files by going to your file viewer in Windows. And I'll actually show you some images here from my articles so that you know what I'm talking about. You can open this up in whatever your file viewer is on Windows, and then you can click on View, scroll down to Show, and then Hidden Items. And then at that point, if you did it correctly, you'll also see a little .git folder in here because it's hidden by default. Okay, and that's how you know Git, not only with like the message in the terminal that tells you you're good to go, but you can even view the file in there if you'd like. Okay. So that's just a way to tell that your Git is good and set up and ready to go. So I don't need to view these hidden files, so I'm going to hit Shift Command period again and just get it back to normal. But you know, if you want to view them whenever you can, you know how to view hidden files now. Let's go back into our terminal. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add the files to the staging area. And I'm going to add all of the files at once. So to do that, you type in the following command: git add period enter. And again, we're not getting any kind of success message here, but we know that we're probably good to go because we didn't get an error message. Okay, so now we can check. There's a command for you can check to see what files have been staged, and that is the git status command, and hit enter. So git status enter. So notice how it says no commits yet. So we haven't officially saved anything to Git, but they're in the staging area, so they're waiting to be saved. They're in the last stop before being saved in what's called committed, okay? So we have all of our files here in green that are about to be committed. And now what we're going to do is we're going to, I'm going to show you really quick before we before we actually commit them. I'm going to show you how to add and remove a single file at a time. So let's say that we wanted to remove about.html. We would do git rm for remove -- cached about.html and hit enter. And then the terminal said removed about.html. So if we do git status again, we see here like untracked file about.html will not be included in the next commit. Okay. Now we can add that single file back, or any single file. You can add whatever single file you want by doing the following command: git add, and I want to add about.html back in because it's important to our website. So I'm going to say git add about.html, and good. And now let's do git status again. And look, see if it's there. There, it's back. Yay! All right. So that's how you remove files and add files. Okay. Now what I want to do is actually commit all of these files. So I'm going to commit them to my main branch, and that's officially going to save them in my little Git archive. So they're going to go from staged to actually committed. So to do that, we're going to do the following command: git commit -m, and now we're going to do quotes. And then in these quotes, we're just going to write a message describing what we're doing. And this is going to go for the logs that we're going to pull up later that show all of our commits. So you always want to write a message with each commit that you make, because you need to tell yourself like what you did or what you changed or something like that, okay? So for the first one, I'm just going to keep it simple and put committing all files, because that's all we're really doing right here. And then I'm going to hit enter. And boom. Look at that. We committed all files, okay? So they've all been pushed to Git, and yeah. So those are all added to Git now. Now I'm going to show you guys now how we can change a file in Git and then view what the changes were and then upload the changes to Git, because this is like really the core meat and potatoes of Git is doing stuff like this. So I'm going to close out of my terminal. Just quit out of it for now, close it completely. And I'm going to go back into Visual Studio Code into my project. And I'm in index.html. And I want to go ahead and change something on here. So let's go live. All right. So let's put my website side by side here just so you can see my changes visually. All right. So we're here at my home page. I have my index.html code open, and I have my index page open. And notice here on welcome to all about lines on the home page, I just have a bunch of lorem ipsum dummy text here. And you know what? I don't want that anymore. I actually want to change that, and I want to put some real human text in there. So I'm just going to delete that, and then I'm just going to say lions are the fiercest land predators of them all. They hunt in packs and live in groups called a pride. Save. Okay. So there we go. There's my text here. No more dummy text. Now we have real human text. Okay. So let's go back into our project. So I'm going to close out of my code, minimize this. And I'm going to go back into my project in my terminal. So again, I'm going to right click, new terminal folder. And I'm going to show you how you can view and then add your changes to Git that we just made, okay? So now that we're back in our project here, let's use git status, the git status command, hit enter. And look at this, guys. It's telling us what just happened here. It's basically telling us here that we modified index.html, but we haven't staged them, and there's no changes to commit yet. So Git, since it's watching our files, since we committed our files, like now it's watching, it's knowing what we're doing anytime we make a change. Behind the scenes, Git is getting notified, and it knows what we did, okay? What we can do now is, it just says modified index.html in red, but we can actually see explicitly what was changed from one version to another. And to do that, we can use the command git diff. Hit enter. And now check this out, guys. It's showing us in the file, and it's showing us in red is the old code. So it's giving us the file up here, index.html. A, this is A. B is the change that we made, okay? So it's saying before in red, we had this paragraph with all this dummy text, and then green is the change that I just made, so to the real human text, okay? So that git diff will show you that, which is pretty cool. And now what we can do is we can go ahead and just recommit our index file so that this version in green is officially saved as the version. And to do that, we like I just showed you earlier, we're going to use the git add command. So let's say git add index.html. Okay. And now we're going to commit it. So we staged it. Remember, we didn't commit it. Now it's just in the staging area. So now we're going to commit it. So we're going to say git commit M for main branch. And then again, in quotes, we're going to put something descriptive that describes what we did. So I'm going to say in this note, changed paragraph text under H1 heading. And then I'll hit enter. Boom. One file changed, one insertion, 7 deletions. So maybe 7 lines. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, so that's where 7 deletions is coming from. And sorry guys, let's make this bigger. Sorry about that. So yeah, now it's just telling us what we did. It says, hey, we're committing the new file, and we should be good to go. So those are the main basics, guys. I'm just going to show you like one more thing here in Git, and I'm going to show you how to view your commit history. Okay. So again, this is just going to basically show us the history of everything that we've added and changed. So to do that, it's a really simple command. It's just git log, enter, and now it'll show the author, what was changed, like and it goes from the last thing you changed, and then as you scroll down or get down further, it's like the stuff that you changed a long time ago. Okay, so we only have a really small git log here because all we really did was a couple of things. The first thing we did was we committed all of our files in our project folder to be saved. And then after that, all we did after that was change paragraph text under H1 heading. So that's the only 2 things we did. On a bigger project, there would be probably lines and lines and lines of stuff that you changed. But, this is just a simple little example. But that's how you view your changes, and that's git log. Okay? So that's really all I want to show you with just Git in the terminal, because in a real world setting, as soon as you start a real project, you're pretty much going to be pushing that thing directly. You'll enter a few commands in your terminal, but then you're going to go directly to GitHub. You're not really going to mess around with Git like this in the terminal too often. At least if you're like me, like I do some freelance stuff, I pretty much work alone most of the time. So this is like my extent of using Git. I'm really not in the terminal too much, but it's good to know this stuff. But now we're going to get into GitHub and pushing our stuff to GitHub. What we're going to do now is I'm going to quit out of my terminal. And then what I want you guys to do now is go to Google and just type in github.com. And I'll just sign out of my account really quick. So this should be the page that you come to. And then what you're going to want to do is click sign up. And then it's going to have you enter in an email address, set a password, and it might ask you for a few more to like confirm your email. It's just like signing up for any other website, but go ahead and sign in and create your account. Take the time to do that now. Pause the video, and then when you have your GitHub account set up, I'm going to show you how to push your project that we've been working on to GitHub. All right, so go ahead and get that done. All right, guys, so after you create your profile, you should be in a dashboard that looks like this. So you should have, if you have a logo or something up here, it'll show your picture, but it should have your username here, and you should be able to click on your profile and see all that stuff. So what we're going to do now is we're going to push our project from Git and our terminal to GitHub. So I'm going to show you how to do that. It's really easy. What we're going to do now is we're going to click on this new button, and then we're going to so these are called repositories. When you have your commits saved into a file, it's called a repository. So we're going to name our repository whatever we want it to be named on GitHub. So I'll just put my Lions website, and this is the repository name. And for my description, I'll just put a cool website about lions. Okay? That's all I'm going to fill in. I'm going to ignore all this stuff down here. I'm going to go ahead and click create repository. And then you're going to come to this page, and it's going to give you 2 options. It's going to say if you're going to create a new repository on the command line, so meaning if you have nothing created yet, if you have no existing Git repository, use these commands, and we're going to be copying and pasting commands, but we're not going to use this one. I'll show you how to do this after I do this example. This is usually what I do first, guys. As soon as I make a project in VS Code and I have my file set up, I go straight to my terminal and I set it up, and I go to GitHub and I commit it immediately to GitHub, so that it's always it's on the cloud right away. It's just it's a safer way to work, obviously, if you have your code saved on a cloud rather than just your local hard drive if something should happen to it. But what we're going to use first is push an existing repository from the command line. So it's just these commands down here. So what we're going to do is minimize this and put this over here. And then we're going to, I want to be able to see those commands because we're going to copy and paste them. So we're going to be using these commands. And we're going to go into Lion's website, and I'm going to click New Terminal Folder again. And what we're going to do is we're going to copy these commands. So I'm just going to copy this command, git remote add origin, and then it'll say, so basically what this first line says is, hey, get ready to push the code to this GitHub account. So it'll say github.com/your username / whatever you name the repository on GitHub. So right now we're going to copy and paste this code in here and hit enter. And again, that's just telling it, hey, get ready, we're sending the code to this web address. And then we're going to hit git branch main. So we're going to commit this to our main branch. And then we're going to push everything to the main branch, copy and paste, and enter. And it's going to do its thing here. And then you should get something that looks like this. And now what we can do, I'm going to make this big, and I'm just going to refresh my page. And bam, look at that. Our project is now from Git to GitHub in the cloud. So pretty cool, huh? Pretty cool. So as you can see now, we're in GitHub. So now you can do a bunch of stuff in GitHub. Like I said, with the GUI, you don't have to really use the terminal anymore. So you can just point and click. So we're in the repository now. I can go here. So look at it. We even have our message here, committing all files, because this is the message that we created in the terminal, right? So this is the last message that we sent. And then right here, index.html, it'll show me the last thing that I did was change paragraph text under H1 heading. Remember, this was all entered through Git locally just in our terminal. So everything was brought over to GitHub just as it is. You can click on this code button. You can download this code as a zip. So again, now this is... anybody in the world can go to this if it's a public repo and download your code in a zip file and open it and play with it. You can click into actual files. So let's go into our about.html. And if I wanted to, I could literally click on the edit file button, and I could actually make edits like right in here. Like I could make an H3. Now I don't recommend you do this too often. This isn't really good practice, but just to show you. Like there's like a whole text editor in here, and then I can put commit changes, and it would actually change the file on Git and GitHub. But I don't want to do that. I just wanted to show you that you can do that because, again, that's not a good idea. So I'm just going to get out of here before I break something, right? No, just kidding. I mean, this is just like an example, guys. It's not a big deal. But so, yeah, you can edit files, download them anywhere. Other developers can do what's called a pull request and request to work on the project and add files to the main branch, and you can approve or deny it. You can add files here, create new file, upload files from your computer. You can pretty much do whatever you want. And then if you didn't want the repository anymore, you can click up here in settings, and you can go down all the way down to delete this repository, and you can delete it if you want. Okay, so that's GitHub. So this is my GitHub profile. It has a lot of this is like the projects that I did on YouTube. And I also, if you go in my descriptions, I have the code for it. So you can go in there and check it out and compare your code to my code or download my code and do whatever you want. It shows all your commits. So this is another thing if you're a developer, maybe when you get to a certain point in the interview process, if it's a medium to large company, some developers eventually going to want to know that you have a GitHub profile. They're probably going to come to this page and they're going to see your commits and see what you're working on. So again, that's another reason why Git and GitHub is important to know. But yeah, so Let's go ahead, and what I want to do now is create a new repository straight from the get-go and upload it to GitHub right away, because that's more of a realistic use case. So I'm going to go here, and I'm going to minimize this for a second. I'm going to close out of my terminal completely, and I'm going to make a new folder, and I'm just going to call it my new project. And I'm going to open my new project in Visual Studio Code. And let's just pretend like we're building something new. And do this along with me if you want. I do recommend it. So let's make an index.html, a style.css, and an index.js. And we'll just go ahead and make our boilerplate code in here. Say my new project. We'll have an H1 that says hello world. And then we'll add some CSS. Say margin 0, padding 0. Box sizing border box. H1, we're going to say text align center. Margin top 5 rem. Color red. Font family Arial. And then we'll say alert. This page is awesome. A little overkill, but I haven't coded anything in like a week or two, so just in the mood to code stuff. So just bear with me. Let's connect our style.css. Let's go down to our script and connect our JavaScript to index.js. And let's go live and make sure that this all works. So here's our project. Here's our new project that we just started working on. JavaScript, this page is awesome. Hello world in red. Beautiful, okay? So, my beautiful creation. I do not want anything bad to happen in this creation. I do not want it to get deleted or my hard drive to fail and I lost it all. So right away, out of the gate, I'm not going to mess with the terminal. We are going to go in the terminal, but I'm not going to do anything locally on Git, really. I'm going to push this straight from Git to GitHub, okay? So, and this is my normal workflow, and I'm working on something important. So I'm going to X out of this. I'm going to close it in Visual Studio Code. And we're going to, let's get line of the website out of my way. Let's go back into GitHub. And let's get this thing committed. So let's click new. We'll name my repository my-new-website. And then the description will be my awesome new website. Go down here and hit create repository. And now we're going to use the commands up here, guys, because we're going to go straight. And it's not going to exactly be this. I'll show you how I do it. But we're going to use most of these commands right here. So I'm going to minimize this just like I did last time. Just keep it so I can see the commands. Whoops. There we go. So put this over here. Well, actually, let's put this over here. This right here. And I'm going to right-click and open a new terminal at my project folder that I just created. And we're going to do git init, enter. I'm going to say git add, because I want to add all my files. And then I'm going to copy and paste starting at git commit m first commit. And I'm going to say git branch m main, because we want to go to our main branch. I'm going to say get ready to push this to my GitHub account at this web address. And git push origin, so please commit the files to GitHub. Enter. Boom. And let's refresh. And that's usually how I do it. Okay. I get my stuff, like when I'm doing those front-end mentor challenges, I'm behind the scenes. I'm pushing my stuff right away in case, God forbid, and stuff does happen, guys. You will be building stuff. I have been building stuff and like hit some kind of errant typo key somewhere in my code. And I've had thousands of lines of HTML, or not HTML, but of CSS for sure on some huge projects that I built, and I couldn't find the freaking error. So like, thank God I had Git and GitHub, because I just went back into my files here, into one of my older commits, and I just copy pasted the code back into my code editor and saved it, and it was fixed. I don't know what I did, but that was like a huge crash. I'll never forget that morning. I was like panicking for like a half an hour, and I was like, dummy, you have it on GitHub. Just go just paste the code in, right? So yeah, Git and GitHub, very, very important to know these skills, guys. I'm going to show you one more awesome, cool thing that's going to make your life 10 times easier with Git and GitHub. And so let's quit out of our terminal. Bring this over to my other screen for a second. And let's open Visual Studio Code. I'm going to open my new project. So the one that we just created. And you guys, I'm not sure if you knew this, but VS Code will integrate with Git and GitHub, so that as you build, you can save your changes and make commits right away without even leaving your text editor. And I'm going to show you how to do that. So go down here to your profile account thing and click on sign into sync settings, or sign in sync settings. And then it's going to bring up this page here. Let me grab it. So sign in as practical web dev. Do you want to continue? Yep, I do. So right now we're going to authorize Visual Studio Code to view our GitHub and make changes. And open. And that's it. Look at that. Setting sync is on. Practical Web Dev GitHub. Now my GitHub, that commit that I just did, is now linked. So I'm going to show you how to make commits and changes right now. So let's do P, my new paragraph. Save. Look what happened right there, guys. See that? See that branch? Does that look familiar? That's the Git logo, right? So let's click on it, because now it has a 1 here because I just made one new change. But let's see if I make another one. Another P tag. We'll say another new paragraph. Is that how you spell it? I don't know. I'm tired. Another new paragraph. Look what happens. Oh, I thought it would go to 2. Whatever, it didn't. So if I just click on this Git branch, now I can enter my commit message. Remember the commit message that we do, where we do the quotes in the terminal and we put a commit message? We can actually do that here. So I can say added 2 new paragraphs. And then I can just click this button, commit. And that doesn't really commit it. What it does is it stages it. Remember, staging and committing are 2 different things. But then if I click this button here, or this button down here, they both have the 1. I usually click the 1 down here. This will actually push this to that GitHub repo directly that we just made. So let's click it. This little dial up here turns, and it should be there now. So let's go view it in GitHub. All right, so this is my repo. I'm going to hit refresh up here, and we should have a new commit. So these were 4 minutes ago. And look at that, index.html now. Added 2 new paragraphs. Look at that, guys. The code's right there. Now this gets even cooler. What I'm going to do this in another video coming up, but if you have your GitHub, if you are hosting a website through one of those web hosts like Netlify, that's really popular, that can host like front-end websites for free. If you're hosting your website and it's hooked up to your GitHub account directly, you can literally make like live updates to your website by going into your VS Code, changing things on the website, pushing them to GitHub immediately. And then since GitHub is running off of your or Netlify or whatever your host is, if that's running off of your GitHub account and they're all integrated and connected, you can make changes on the fly to your website in like 5 seconds. So that's really cool. Really, really nice. It's really convenient. So as you can see, we didn't have to mess with the terminal now. And that workflow I just showed you guys where I upload to existing stuff, I still go into the terminal a little bit, but I'm not really in the terminal all that much. I get my stuff on GitHub right away. It's integrated with my Visual Studio Code, and that's how I push changes in my little simple workflow. Now, there's a million different workflows that you can have. This is just mine. There's a million ways to do stuff. It can get way more complicated if you want it to. I like to keep stuff really simple. I don't like complexity, so that's what works for me. But that's going to do it for this video, guys. Again, I'm going to have a whole bunch of other resources and information in the description of this video, so check that out. Hopefully this got you set up on the right foot, learning Git and GitHub, and you feel like you learned something here today. But yeah, I will see you guys in the next video. Thank you so much for watching.